and I'm a little bit of a blowhard, so I'll try and do this in 45 minutes. So the best way to deal with a blowhard is to tell your entire talk at the beginning. So if I have to hurry through it, you don't miss anything. So given your guys' position and role in the park, the first thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit of ecological background to Yellowstone, give you an update on the wolves, talk about what makes wolves controversial. They eat elk. They do occasionally eat livestock, but that's not really a park issue. Talk a little bit about all the discussions and work being done on what we call trophic cascades, and then talk about wolf hunting, and at the end talk about what Yellowstone would be like without wolves. So that's my talk in a nutshell, and the rest of it is just to fill you in on details. And so I chose this title for my talk because really this is the problem that wolves have. They're a creature that isn't really a wilderness animal, although in many ways they define wildness. But they can live quite comfortably next to people. But people have a hard time living with them. That's why Yellowstone Park is an ideal place for them to be. They also require a lot of space. And that is something in this day and age that humans don't want to give up. Visitation is growing, the human population is growing just about everywhere, and we need more space, either to live on or to grow our resources. And wolves need a lot of space too. So even though wolves have recovered and increased in North America and in Europe the last 30 or 40 years, there are still a lot of issues that need to be faced, and it will be coexistence, humans and wolves living with each other. And even in places like Yellowstone with 4 million people a year, we deal with wolf-human issues, so no place is immune. So many consider this to be the eye of wildness. And even though they can live next to people, it kind of is, because they only do really well in remote regions of the world. And some would call Yellowstone not that remote. It's a small protected area by many standards. And the other, I think, misconception about Yellowstone, and you can find this in any kind of small library about the park, is it really has not been a history of pristineness. I only caught some of Roy's talks, and I'm sure there's other talks that touch on this, but you know, it came in 1872 when predator control was occurring. The fur trade was already winding down, and they killed wolves as a sidelight to killing beavers. Market hunting was ongoing, and that's right in the context that Yellowstone was established. And then park administrators continued killing predators. And then we had to artificially control elk and suppress fires and grow bison. And so Yellowstone has been a heavy manipulated place for most of its history. And what I think is important, and this is arguable and maybe somewhat opinion-based, is it's as good as it's ever been. Because the last wolf was killed in 1926, the last cougar in the 30s somewhere. Even though bears were spared because of Forrest Albright, they declined. And because of a change in human attitudes, in other words, we did not grow more wolf habitat, wolves came back. Not so long ago, 50, 60 years ago, nobody liked a wolf. A few lone voices like Aldo Leopold and Adolph Muri and a couple others. Nobody liked wolves. They were vermin. There was such a thing as good animal and bad animals. And wolves were the worst of the bad. So we wiped them out. So then, attitudes started to change. Rachel Carson Silent Spring, 1973, Endangered Species Act, Wolves Listed 1974. That all built momentum. And we got this. Cultural norms changed. And that is probably the single most important thing that brought wolves back. Now, it's not all anti-wolf, it's 50-50 pro-anti, and that debate, that polarization continues. It's a big debate. This is just some of Yellowstone's past history of disturbance. And this is not a criticism to park managers back then. You know, these ideas change, and all of us are working with the best available information at that time. This is not a criticism. But what is natural? How should parks be managed? What should parks be managed for? All those are questions that have answers that change through time because our science and our values get updated and change. I didn't think I put that many pictures of that in. So I'm not going to talk much about this, but an old friend of mine from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is out in the audience, Joe Fontaine. He should talk about this slide, but what I'm talking about is just here. This was a part of a bigger effort to restore wolves. A recovery plan was written, a recovery team was established, but this was a plan to restore wolves to Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. I did not say Northern Rockies, because the Rockies go further than the U.S., by the way. There's Canada and there's Alaska, so a lot of people call this the Northern Rockies. But there's more up there. But wolves immigrated naturally here, and so the plan was to nurture them, but then reintroduce them to central Idaho and to Yellowstone Park with the idea that they would spread to the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and that has happened. There's 1,700 wolves in that region. There's about 500 in GYE right now. And so wolves are delisted in all 3 states. That road to delisting has been rocky, largely due to human squabbling, not so much to wolf biology. But twice now wolves have been delisted due to congressional action, not through the Endangered Species Act. But the criteria for delisting has been to meet a minimum population for each recovery area, and that's 100, 100, and 100. All 3 states are managing with a buffer, so their goal is 150, 150, 150, so collectively 450 with connectivity. So there's wolves moving between these areas, and that's been minimally demonstrated. I won't get into the details of that, but minimally it's been demonstrated. And then approved management plans. And that's where the disputes have occurred about what is a adequate management plan. But that's really the criteria for delisting. And there's been many lawsuits, and I won't get into it. But wolves in Wyoming were the last to be delisted, and that just occurred last month. And so there was debate about reintroduction. Many people thought that Bob Reed's one of them, great man, just passed away 6 weeks ago, University of Montana. He felt wolves, Diane Boyd was another, should come to Yellowstone from northwest Montana, Canada on their own, not be reintroduced. And that's just a scientific debate. In many ways, Yellowstone and the area around it functions as an island. And to a degree, that has been supported since we let wolves go. We have not documented connectivity between the GYE and northwest Montana. We have documented it between the GYE and Idaho. Again, not common because the wolves can do it for sure, but they usually die trying to do it. But nonetheless, it's connectivity. So the debate was a good one. Nonetheless, we reintroduced, I used the royal we, Fish and Wildlife Service guy here in the audience. But part of that was to speed the process up and to relax some of the stringency of the Endangered Species Act. In other words, a fully protected endangered species, if they attack your livestock, you have to watch them do it. If they're reintroduced, some of that relaxes, you can protect your livestock. Some of the compliance work for an endangered species is less if they're reintroduced. They're called experimental, not essential. So that's what caused the idea to reintroduce them. So this photo was in my talk for the first 10 years of my talks, and I took it out for the last 10, and now I'm putting it back in, because hopefully all of you weren't here 20 years ago. But this is the most famous picture we have. This is the Secretary of the Interior, the late Director of the Fish and Wildlife Service, the superintendent of Yellowstone. I mean, all of you should embrace that Yellowstone is one of the bigger conservation theaters in the world. Yellowstone by itself, nothing else. And you throw wolves in on top of it, and this is big time theater. And so this is a very historic photo, gotta say it. First wolf being carried in, Crystal Creek Pack. And so this is the current configuration of wolves, 11 packs, and this is little changed. I don't want to bog you down in details. If I do, I'll never finish on time. But this is little changed since 2008. And in 2008, we just came off our third disease outbreak. Distemper. We had an outbreak in 99, 05, and 08. And each time after the first two outbreaks, the wolves came right back. After the third one, they didn't. And we've had roughly this many packs in those areas. No radio collars in this pack. That's why it's an estimated home range. Since 2008. So we're a very stable wolf population. And I'm looking for this slide, so sorry about that. I'll jump back. I'm doing this to keep you awake. But there's the numbers built up, declined, distemper, came right back, built up, declined, distemper, came back, declined because of distemper, and we've been flat ever since about 2008. So some type of stability has occurred. An equilibrium, and that's a much abused word in ecology, but to make a point, I'll use it, an equilibrium with their food source, which thus far is primarily elk, but more and more bison are showing up just because of sheer numbers of bison. And so this graphic is split into the park population, the interior in light blue, and the northern range in dark blue. And all the way up until 2008, we had more wolves in northern Yellowstone, on the northern range, which is roughly 10% of the park area, than the entire rest of the park. And that's due because of the northern Yellowstone elk herd, which at the time of reintroduction in 1995 was the single largest elk herd in North America, and it was by most accounts overpopulated, and the wolves took advantage of that, as you can see right here. Boom, boom, twice, and now things have leveled out. I have an elk slide right after this one. And so, this is the northern Yellowstone's elk winter range. They go throughout the park in the summer, they even go north. But this has been a boundary that's been long established. And so it's this area of the park, 2/3 of this area is within the park. And this is where we had over half the wolf population all the way up to 2008 because of that huge biomass of elk. And now we have more wolves throughout here. So in a lot of ways, these are two different systems. And as all of you know, because of my intro, I know I went through too quickly, Yellowstone was created at an imperfect time. Thank goodness it was at that time. Who knows what would have happened if they didn't get it in 1872. But then also it was imperfectly drawn up because what ecological system has a straight line? And as you can see, they didn't capture the entire winter range for this herd. And that's been an issue that we've been dealing with ever since, is these kind of transboundary movements of all the wildlife. And wolves are one of the best examples of that. So this is the elk. Now there are 7, and in some people's writings, 8 elk herds that use Yellowstone. And so this is just the northern herd from 1935, way out here, because we eliminated the carnivores, wolves, cougars, coyotes, lynx, bobcat, wolverine, bears were separate. They were reduced though for other reasons. We controlled elk all the way up to 1968. And so this is counted elk, by the way. It's hard to estimate you always miss elk when you count them, but this is counted elk, and you can see in the late 60s we had hovering around 4,000 elk. Due to a policy change called natural regulation in the Park Service, and changing public attitudes, the pictures of the Park Service controlling elk came out on the evening news in 1967-68. We stopped controlling elk, and without predators, this is what they did. Shot up. So then the debate became, and was only finishing off when I got here in 1994, that you got too many elk. Montana State, University of Montana, Utah State, all scientists hammering the park, led by Fred Wagner at Utah State, but, Mackey at MSU, and I forget the guy at U of M, but, you're destroying the ecosystem with all these elk. That was the tune right about here. In fact, Wagner got the Wildlife Society Book of the Year award for writing about this, Yellowstone's destabilized ecosystem. And it was all because there's too many elk. So that is the backdrop of when wolves were introduced. And cougars were starting to get a toehold in here on their own in the mid-80s. And so what happened is the elk population declined. And keep in mind, we weren't as forthcoming about there were too many elk. The state of Montana was. They were very forthcoming about it. So they built up a hunt in the 70s called the late hunt, and they started harvesting cow elk to reduce the herd size. So all of those factors conspired to have fewer elk. So we feel that the decline in elk is multi-causal. Lots and lots of people disagree. This is right when you reintroduce wolves right here. And this is how many elk you got now. This is a minimum counted number of elk of over 18,000, 19,000. This is a counted elk herd of about 6,000, 7,000. Tell me what's different. What's different are wolves. Cannot tell you how many times I've heard this. Well, we don't discount cougars. They have a higher per capita kill rate than do wolves. Dan Staley's working on that. And bear numbers have increased. And the state of Montana, we're shooting cows north of the park, 1,000 a year average, some years as high as 2,000. That hunt's over with now. They've achieved their objective, lower herd size. But now we're dealing with, we got fewer elk, so the conversation's changed. So this is a very difficult story that I just quickly told you to tell people in America. How can this be not as good as this? Less is not more in America. We're a consumer culture. More is always better. So this is a National Park Service success story. We feel this is more of a natural system. That is our boilerplate policy than this. No predators and elk at or above carrying capacity. So this is a very difficult story to explain, get behind, and tell a hunter who used to hunt elk very successfully north of Yellowstone, and those success rates have gone down for multiple reasons, not just wolves. But you know what? Wolves are a huge factor, without a doubt. They're a huge factor, but not the only factor. These guys, I'm radio tracking wolves one day, and I get this out of the camera lens, and these guys are around. In fact, most environmental news nowadays is bad. Arguably in Yellowstone, it's good. We're more carnivore rich than we were at Park Establishment, 1872. We're not doing predator control in Yellowstone anymore. Coyotes have even come back, by golly. Who likes a coyote? We were killing them too in the park. Read about it. It's all through the archives. And so we're maybe more natural than we were back in the 1800s. So this is a good story. This is what I get at, and I'm trying to kind of use abused words in ecology like equilibrium, but this is another way to look at the stability Yellowstone has kind of encountered the last 10 or so years. So this is just very simply plotting the number of elk in the northern herd versus the number of wolves in the northern range. And so you put a dot for each year, and the yellow are the early years, and the green are the later years. And you can see in the early years, these lines are bouncing around every year. We have different numbers of wolves and elk every year. The system is very unstable. You don't know what you're going to get the next year. But look at these last few years. They're just dropped in at around 40 wolves northern range, 5,000 elk. That's very interesting. What is going to happen next? We don't know. But it's going to be some of the best questions in ecology are the simplest. Is this going to stay there for another decade? Or are the elk going to rebound? Or is a fire going to come through and reset things? Or is some disease going to come through and hit the wolves? Don't know. And then there's this. So I'm getting to a point in my life where I guess I'm getting to be like the people I used to refer to when I was young. You like to repeat things a lot. And I got here in 1994, that was 23 years ago. And when I got here in 1994, there were 500 bison on the Northern Range. I think this winter there are what? I don't track that much, over 3,000. And so the wolves hate to kill bison. We just did a paper on it. Amy Talion, who just did her PhD on wolf-bison relationships, partly at Utah State, looked at this, and she spent many pages of erudite writing to say wolves hate killing bison. Now they do if they don't have a choice, but they would rather eat them if they die from another cause. But there's a lot of bison biomass around now, and so the wolves are adapting. If there's anything a wolf is, it's adaptable and opportunistic. And so this is what I've been talking about, the wolf population in red, bouncing up and down because of disease, and coming down, the elk herd declining for the reasons I stated, and bison coming up. And wolves are using them. Kind of calves right now, a lot of carrying in the winter, and so this is an unfolding story. And so we got, as you guys know, wolves are a big deal, but elk are bigger. No, wolves are a big deal because they eat elk. And these guys are iconic. Religious fervor in the West. Religious fervor over the northern Yellowstone elk herd, one of the most famous. How many popularized articles have been there? What happened to northern Yellowstone's elk? And if you read on, usually those articles say the wolves ate them. And that's partly true, but not entirely, as I said. So since 2011, we've gotten a couple grants, and we've collared over 150 female elk. We're discussing bull elk, but to a large degree, the herd dynamics are driven by the females. Sorry, guys. But right now, we've got about 100 of these cows collared, and we're looking at reproduction, pregnancy, distribution, migration, survival. We're analyzing all those things. And why are they dying? Who's killing them? How old are they when they're dying? What diseases have they been exposed to? That's a separate talk. So we have married those two things. Yellowstone's always studied elk. Done a great job of it. But we had a collaring period in the early 2000s, and we've gotten into another collaring period now. And that's because it's a big deal. And we've always really, arguably, we've been studying elk in Yellowstone for over 100 years. And so the holy grail for wolf studies is what do they kill and how often they kill, and how do those things translate to herd dynamics. And because I knew I was going to go over, I pulled out some of those more detailed slides. But we know wolves are killing about 2 to 3% of the elk herd each year. That's called predation rate. Sometimes it's as high as 5 to 6%. That's the portion of the elk herd that goes out due to wolves. Hunters are taking 2 to 3%. Cougars we don't have a good estimate on, and bears we don't have a good estimate on. But you add all that up, and that's the predation rate on elk. And that's probably added up somewhere around 10 to 12% of the northern Yellowstone elk herd is removed by predators each year. And that includes humans. And so this herd stability, the elk herd stability that we've had since roughly 2008-2, is still stable with that kind of offtake. That's our best guess at the offtake now. And actually, the wolf offtake is probably more in the 4 to 5% range. So that's, again, these are unfolding ideas that we're trying to figure out. How many elk die a year due to all causes? And what's that do to population trajectory? Well, right now, 10 to 12% is the estimate, and the herd's fairly stable. So that's a very interesting, and by the way, hard to get finding. So this is also when wolves do the best, right here. This is how much meat they eat per day. This is how many kills they make per day, but this does not translate well to how much meat they consume because they kill smaller things in the summer. They kill big things in the winter, and in the wintertime and spring now, the ungulates aren't recovering from winter that well. They're in poor shape. Wolves are eating the best in winter and late winter to spring, and then as the ungulate condition improves, their kill rates go down and they start sliding back up towards winter. So winter's the time for the wolf. The summer is the time for the prey because they got vegetation that's nutritious everywhere and they spread out. So it's harder for wolves to find it. And I got to start making time. This is one of my favorite graphics because there's people in the room who have worked on this study and all of you have heard about it, but every mid-November to mid-December in March, we intensively survey what wolves are killing, and this bar graph, the height of each bar, shows how much meat they eat each day. And this is early winter, when elk are in better shape, and the bars aren't as big as they are in late winter, when elk are in worse shape. And you can also see by the colors, black, just look at it, we don't have time to talk about all of them, are bulls. And they're killing fewer bulls early winter compared to late winter because the bulls are in better shape early winter. Although there are some that are weakened by the rut and they kill those. They find them and kill them because they get worn out from the rut. But by late winter, that rut starts catching up with the wolves, they start killing them. But every winter's different. All those bars are different sizes. And the colors in each bar are different. And that's the interesting thing about ecology and wolves and climate change. There's no normal, and you never know what you're going to get the next winter. So we've spent a lot of time besides analyzing what they kill and what they eat and how much they kill and what the herd's doing, but how wolves do it, and that's fascinating. That's wolf behavior. That's why I got into this line of work. They're a fascinating animal to study. And we've learned for the first time anywhere in the world that wolves have a division of labor killing. Females and young males are not that big, so that makes them faster runners. And they pursue the elk and choose which one to attack. And on average, almost all the time, they choose an animal that's got a problem. They very rarely kill healthy animals. They do, but on average, they can't make a living killing a healthy animal because your average wolf is 100 pounds. And your average elk is 500 to 700. It makes sense. You're not going to be able to go on and take on the healthiest elk in the herd every single time. Or you're going to get your brains bashed in. And so they look for problems, vulnerabilities. And it's those fast wolves, the females and the young males, that do that. And the big males are behind. But they're bigger, 20% bigger. And I learned this chasing them the last 20 years with a helicopter. These big males ain't got no gas. They'll stop and look at you. I have never met a female wolf that did not think she could outrun the helicopter. Not one. And I think that's because every female wolf chasing an elk thinks they can catch it. And it's a race, because their top two speeds are dead even, 35 miles an hour. But that's how it works. They single out the elk, the females or young males grab it, the big males catch up, and they take it down with their greater size and strength. And we've seen this time and time again. Now I know all of you in here are wolf watchers who either come out and say, God, I saw the 06 female kill elk single-handedly by herself all the time. These are patterns, not laws or rules. Ecology is not a physical science. You don't get a rule and get repetition every time. So hold your questions, I get them all the time. These are patterns with trends. Tons of exceptions. I could never categorize all of the human behavior in this room, but I might be some of you. Okay? So this is the darting process. And I'm running out of time, and I have lots more to cover, but this has been the success of our work. That combined with extreme visibility. We have been successful marking wolves, so we can follow their lives, their life stories, essentially. That's all science is, really, is the accumulation of knowledge and putting individual data points together. And in this case, the life story of individual wolves, watching them kill, watching them eat, watching them interact, watching them born, watching them die, and collars do that for you. It's controversial, don't have time to get into that, because we're a national park. Why are you chasing wildlife around with a helicopter? But the other reason is you guys see them all the time. So there's been no other place where wolves have been viewed as much as Yellowstone. And you combine that with the traditional study techniques, and it's produced new knowledge about wolves, even though they're one of the best studied mammals in the world. And they are. When I got here in 1994, I'm like, what more can we learn about wolves? I mean, some of the most famous biologists out there got famous studying wolves. Story's over. Well, we didn't know we were going to get this extreme visibility. This is what it looks like right before we pull the trigger. There's a gun, there's a wolf. Take a shot. First thing you do is you look at it, and usually the story of the wolf is told in their teeth. How old's that wolf? Young, middle-aged, or old? You guys can be wolf biologists. It's a young wolf, it's a pup. There's no wear, there's no staining. That's the first thing we do. Then we take some physical measurements, we draw some blood, we put a collar on it, and that's a lot of the data we gather. And then we fly in airplanes tracking them. That's a big part of it. You see that, especially interior wolves. And occasionally we use remote cameras. And I'm not a techie kind of guy. I'm sure all of you know that by now. I know half of you or something like that. A little bit of a technophobe, but my crew loves gadgets. And they're like, hey, we don't have a collar in this pack. Let's put a camera up. I'm like, just, you know, you want to go for a hike in the woods. Just say you want to go for a hike in the woods. You know, you're not going to take it out of it. And secondly, I think it could disturb the wolves. It might bother them. Well, we know where they hang out. Let's just throw up one of these remote cameras. Well, clearly it's not bothering the wolf. And right after this photo was taken, the pup ripped the thing off the tree and chewed on it. I'm surprised the camera survived and we got the photo. But this is, if you read the wildlife literature, starting to come to be a very useful tool for wildlife monitoring is remote cameras. And if you set them up in a grid pattern, you can actually get population estimates on mark and recapture data. It isn't just a gadget that's fun to go out and put up. But we're out there year round. And a lot of wolf studies are in remote regions of Canada and Alaska, and you don't have year-round access. And so and a lot of you help with it. We get reports and conversations, and that's what makes this a very rich, deep wolf study. And of course, National Geographic came for 2 years. That issue has come and gone, and they put up remote cameras themselves, and this is one of those shots on 8 Mile pups in July. So that's the developmental stage for pups in July. I'm not going to go through this. I know you're shuddering to see all these graphs in one page. This is very poor public speaking to do this much. So I'm going to summarize this. All of these different panels of graphs have come out in publications, and so you can look them up and read them. But the only point I want to make out of this is wolves live life in a hurry. Average age of death is 5. Median age of death is 6. Cougars live 10, 15, 20 years. Bears, I don't know anything about, but I hear bear guys talking about bears over 20 years of age. That's unheard of for a wolf. How wolves have evolved through time, thousands backed up by millions of years. The first wolf-like canid was 1 million years ago, and the first canid was 40 million years ago. The body type for canids has been very successful through evolutionary time. And what they have evolved to do is reproduce at a high rate and die young. Why? You eat things bigger than you, so you're going to die doing it. They're ferociously competitive with each other. When humans are out of the picture, because overwhelmingly in the Rocky Mountains, 80% of all wolves die because humans kill them for various reasons. Hunting, livestock control, poaching, vehicle strikes. Wolves die because of people. But if you take that out, they die because they kill each other. And so that, through time, has been selected, plus eating things bigger than you, to compress everything in your life to less, shorter. And actually, it's kind of interesting to think about. I mean, if you study wolves, you're going to have to deal with death. Because they kill, and they die at a high rate. And any wolf walking out around there in Yellowstone any given day, we've learned, has a pretty good chance of dying the next day. And they seem okay. If I had that kind of probability of dying the next day, I'd be depressed all the time. I would not be here giving a talk. I would be doing something fun someplace because I could die tomorrow. But they go through life with a really good chance of dying and seem fine with it. And I get asked all the time by school groups, what have you learned from wolves? That might be it. Enjoy the moment. And they love to be social. They love to be social. Wolves, when they're by themselves, they're trying to get back into a pack situation. There's many types of packs. This is a complex pack with every age class you can imagine, and how they do business is entirely different than how these do business. That is mom, that's dad, that's the pups, and that's it. But they're still a social group. And that's how they organize themselves, and that is a big key to their life. Other than living life in a hurry, in other words, taking their whole life history and squashing it into a few years, take that thought and put it alongside the thought that they're social. Cougars, bears, coyotes, foxes, other carnivores, wolverines for crying out loud. I never see another one, except the breed. Wolves are social, and that sets them apart from a lot of other carnivores. Other mammals, actually. Beavers are another social mammal, and that's rare. But that's part of what they are. And this is their ferocious territoriality. Two wolves here, old blacktail pack, agate pack. These guys better be able to run faster than these guys. And this is a big part of wolf life. Just like people, we're competitive. They're competitive. You get caught, you're going to get hurt, or you're going to die. 60% of all wolves die in Yellowstone due to other wolves. Big time mortality factor. Just happened a couple weeks ago. 821, a lead female prospect pack killed by other wolves. Had pups in the den. We have no idea what the fate of those pups are. None. I gotta hurry up, but this is Kira Cassidy's work. She deserves credit for this. She did her master's at Dayton Beach, University of Minnesota, on what causes one pack to win over another. And this is 0. That means when your pack sizes are exactly the same, a pack of 10 goes up a pack of 10. You go up 0 to where the line crosses, you have roughly a 50-50 chance of winning. You add one wolf or two wolves, your chances of winning jump significantly. So numbers matter. Pack composition matters too. The 3 things Kira tested were pack size, pack composition, and home or away advantage. I'm a football fan, so you know when your team's playing at home, you're supposed to have a better chance of winning. We found no effect of home or away in wolves. I was surprised. But we did find an effect of pack size, and we did find an effect of pack composition, and it's very heartening to know that the effect is old males have a significant contribution to your pack winning a battle. Makes me feel great. I'm going to repeat myself. I've been here 23 years. How many more times will I say that? But old males have caused the pack to have a statistically higher probability of winning. And we think, and talk to Kira, she's the expert at this is due to wisdom. They know how to fight the fights better. They know when to fight and when not to fight. And they are aggressive to the last day they die. Female aggression peaks and then stabilizes. Males' aggression keeps going up their entire life. They have a lot to lose. And so what else do wolves die from? This is August, Pelican Valley. This was killed by an elk. We have more wolves killed in August by elk than any other month. Can you venture a guess as to why? Elk are in their best shape of the year in August, and September, and October. And they are hard to kill. So what do you do with a wolf if all the elk out there are in good shape? You still got to eat, so you're going to take more chances. And you're going to get injured and hurt as a result. He died. Alpha male Molly's pack. So I got to finish hurrying quickly, but I've got to get this in. Greatest American writer of all time, Mark Twain. Wow. I showed this slide before, never got that. And This is all of how people like to deal with wolves. People love to imagine about how the world works. Or I know what those wolves are doing out there. Or I know what I want the world to be like. They do it largely without evidence or data. This is what science does. Supposing is good, this is humans, but finding out is better. This is science. This is our best way of knowing. This sums up how we deal with wolves. Right here. And in fact, it applies to me. I've been studying wolves my entire life. Since 18 was my first wolf job. And I thought wolves were nocturnal. These lines are dawn and dusk at the time of the year. And this shows how much wolves move. I won't get into the methods. At different hours of the day. And they're clearly moving at dawn and at dusk. They're crepuscular. They're not moving a lot at night. I was wrong. I was supposing. I had to go find out. So fish stories, wolf stories are worse than fish stories. I have told someone a story about a wolf. They told it to someone else. That person told it back to me. I was having a hard time understanding the story. It was barely recognizable to me. But after they kept talking and talking and talking, I'm like, I think that's the story I told to so-and-so the other day. That's wolf biology. I gotta go fast. The big debate. Willow, Aspen, Cotton. Roy Rankin's in the room. He might have a slightly different version to this. I'll do the best I can with one of the versions I'm working on. Willow, aspen, cottonwood have been browsed heavily during the 20th century. In some places, willow's coming back. Aspen's doing a little bit better. Cottonwood's a different story. Why is this happening? Well, for one, the numerous elk we had probably during most of the 20th century had something to do with that. A lot of elk browsing was occurring mid-20th century to late. So, what does fewer elk mean? Or is this a change in elk behavior? So now we've started to see some willow stands, not all come back, and some aspen stands growing taller. Eric Larson's in the middle of this, doing a lot of this work. Tom Hobbs, David Cooper, Colorado State, are working on this. And with this increase in willow, we've seen a return of beavers. For whatever reason, willows come back. Probably not just due to wolves, probably due to cougars and bears as well. A fully restored carnivore community has brought elk numbers down, plus management outside the state. And plus, as the people at Colorado State have shown, you need to have adequate moisture. It's not just bringing wolves by themselves back. So some sites have not come back. Other sites have. Usually the sites with moisture are the ones that come back. And this is provided for beavers. This is the northwest corner of the park, pack of wolves, beavers. They create more habitat. This is another beaver pond. They create habitat. This is Crystal Creek. This is very fascinating to look because one of the ideas is the northern range had so few beavers for so long that geomorphology had changed and it's going to be hard to get beavers back. And this is one of those sites. There's another one on Blacktail. The beavers have come up from the Lamar and they've been trying to get this spot back into a pond for years. It's only been the last couple of years that they wintered over there and they're starting to get this place to hold water over winter where they can winter there. But this is one of those sites that probably experienced stream incision. It's dug down and the site's changed and it's harder for beavers to get back in there, but you're getting willow and aspen coming in because of the moisture around that. And so that's kind of what these folks are talking about. And this is an aspen stand coming back at Crystal Bench. You can see the old overstory, the young aspen here. This is another site. This is an exclosure near Pleasant Valley. This is up Cache Creek. Here's the overstory. Here's the understory coming back just in the last 10, 15 years. And it brings in birds. These guys, Wilson's warblers, only use willows. This is a willow flycatcher. They only use willows and they're increasing. I'm working with the bird program as well and we're seeing them increase. This is a yellowthroat that also uses willows. Wolves also make kills that several animals take advantage of, like these ravens. Wolves killed it, they're bystanders, ravens use it. 12 different vertebrate species are eating wolf kills. And here's a remote camera shot of a kill, and these are all magnets. So any meat is good meat to a wolf and a bear, but these carcasses that wolves make a lot of wildlife uses. And then come you guys. Best place in the world to view wolves. Sometimes generates a lot of controversy, but we embrace that. Millions of dollars worth of economic activity and a real connection with nature. I mean, that's a really good thing in this day and age of everything artificial. You can go out and see real nature in the field. But we got to manage that. Can't approach a wolf or bear any closer than 100 yards. Clearly, it's always violated. This guy's kind of stalking the wolf around the car. These folks said we started at 100 meters and the wolf got closer. You need to maintain that distance wherever you are. So just keep that in mind. We have hazed the wolves. We've killed 2 that got too close. This happens sometimes in the winter. Wolves trying to cross the road, they can't. So it's 100 yards. You got to maintain that. Wolves really aren't danger. This wolf got hit by a car. People approaching too close, so just be mindful. This is a colleague of mine. What Valgeist thinks wolves are dangerous to people. They're not. There's a lot of good reasons not to have wolves, actually. They do make wolf life a lot more difficult. There's no question about, with wolves or without wolves, life is simpler without them. But they're not dangerous to people. And Dr. Geist has gotten into this a little bit. He thinks they're a human health threat because of hydatid tapeworm cyst. I don't have time to get into this, but the idea of a human safety threat to wolves is not one of the reasons that we need to worry about having them. I think in some ways elk and bison pose more of a threat than do wolves. Acting like you do around a bear, for example, not running, using bear spray, standing tall, all those things are going to work even better with a wolf than they do with a bear. And plus, wolves will never attack you on their first encounter with a person. They always have to lose their natural fear of you, whereas a cougar or a bear, it might be the first time they've ever encountered a human, they might attack you. Wolves need to overcome a natural fear of people, and usually that's done by food conditioning. People are feeding them. So there have been a couple cases in North America since 2000, the entire 20th century, there were none, of people being killed by wolves, and they were food conditioned wolves. In other words, they're feeding them, they're coming up to people, and something went wrong. We now have wolf hunting, and this is Wyoming. This is actually the predator zone, where wolves are killed year-round. This is Montana, and there's a big debate about wolf hunting. In general, I won't get into the debate, but in general, social tolerance is enhanced if you are allowed to kill livestock killing wolves swiftly, and if there is a season on wolves. For the people who have to live with them, for lack of a better way of putting it, it just makes you feel better. Then we're on the endangered species list indefinitely, and you can't do anything. There are some social scientists who question this, primarily led by Adrian Trevis at the University of Wisconsin, who says there's no proof to support that at all, that wolf hatred trumps everything. That you have high poaching before and after. In Scandinavia, they certainly work off this model. They're trying to regulate wolf take, and they see that if you make killing wolves hard, illegal killing goes up. You make killing wolves easy, illegal killing goes down. So there's a lot of social science debate about this. This is an unresolved debate. But nonetheless, most of the state game managers subscribe to this philosophy. And I think, according to their experience, there's a pearl truth to this. Just got back from Michigan. Certainly, Michigan and Wisconsin are saying the same thing. And so this, we've worked with the states. We think successfully. The season on wolves north of the park began unlimited take. No quota, and the hunting district went all the way to North Dakota through work with them, and by the way, other groups in the area engaged in this debate. We have a quota in this unit, which is 313, Gardner Basin, of 2 wolves, and this is 316, a quota of 2 as well. This year 3 were taken because it takes 24 hours to close a season after you've reached your quota. And then very few wolves have been taken in Wyoming because it's for the most part been listed, or the wolves have not been delisted. This is Wyoming too, then a couple in Idaho. So most of the activities here, and the Wyoming and Montana have been very responsive to listening to, well, you can't go from total protection with wolves that are naive to human hunting. Wolves outside the park, arguably, the science on this is back and forth as well, but arguably, they're used to living with people, so used to getting shot at, so they're going to be a little bit more wary of someone walking within 200 yards of a high-power rifle, versus these wolves who allow every single one of you people to walk up to them within 100 yards with a spotting scope. So there needs to be some kind of gradated response from that to out here. And so all through these 2 states primarily have engaged in a discussion of that. And so that's been very good. So what happens is conservation's wise use, a very worthy goal decided by people. And we're not pure preservation, but that means no use. And so just by what we've decided to be management objectives, we're already set up to clash. So you've got to have a boundary that works that out, and that's called politics. And some people say life is politics. I hope that's not true, but they might be. And so I do need to say that sometimes this doesn't go right. So this is the alpha female of the Canyon Pack, and she was found near death on April 11th outside a garden. So she was euthanized by Park Service employees because she did not have a chance of surviving. And we now know that was due to a gunshot wound. And this is under a criminal investigation. There will be a press release about this later today. We are posting a $5,000 reward for information pertaining to her death. And this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. Any wildlife. 2 bison were killed on Blacktail in 2014. $5,000 reward for them. This is not permissible in a national park. This is not what we want. So we got the necropsy back. It was gunshot wound. We are doing a criminal investigation. If you have information about this, look for the press release that is coming out today on how to contact law enforcement confidentially. Very important. I don't have time to tell the story or that story, so I'll just cut to the end and say how I started by telling you my whole talk. Yellowstone, from a lot of its history, was wolfless. We did that. Government officials did that. The Howl of the Wolf now is here. This is a remote camera from Pelican Valley, taken by a National Geographic photographer. Middle of the night. I'm just going to leave you with the thought of what would this picture be like without those 2 critters in it. Same camera. You can't see it, you can barely see it. That's a wolf, and that is not the sun. That's the moon. The heart of Yellowstone, Pelican Valley. Just an open question to you. What would it be like if you took those wolves out of the picture? And you guys are Yellowstone lovers and users. That's for you to answer. A very important question to answer. You, most of all. And I cannot take all the credit. I'm just the guy that Bianca or Tammy calls to come stand here and give the talk. This is a rich, deep team. We have a good interplay with you guys. That's the way it should be. Collaboration, shared credit. So this is one of the more recent wolf crews during the last winter. I grew up in a camp in Ohio. My whole dad's life was young people. And within the confines of the government, it's very difficult to do this. I've tried to involve young people again, like I grew up. And then I gotta say, this guy, I have spent thousands of hours with this guy sitting right there, and he can no longer fly, and his company is no longer in business. And that is first and foremost very sad and it's hurt our research. That is Roger Stradley, whose first flight over Yellowstone was 1952 in that Super Cub. And he is 80 years old now, and his company is no longer going, and he no longer has his pilot license, and that has hurt us bad. We're still trying to recover. And I went over and I told Tammy that I wouldn't do that, so I apologize. So I'm sure there's no time for questions, but just the last thing, this is my end slide taken from the frontispiece of the Wolves of Mount McKinley, now called Denali, but in 1944 it was called Mount McKinley. This is Adolph Neri, and at the bottom it says, "The mountains are a part of me, I am fellow to the trees," poet Robert Service, and I had spent long enough trying to tell people the facts about wolves. I'm starting to feel like I'm pounding my head against the wall. So maybe Adolph Neri in 1944 was right. What we need to do to have people appreciate wolves is read poetry. Thank you very much.
Doug went wonderfully long. I imagine he will stay through the break if you have questions for him. Please come up and ask him. Can everybody try to get back here by 3:20? Will that work? To give you an extra 5. Grab a cookie and get outside. It's